Hello, I'm Julnov, and I welcome you to this Plant-Based for Real show, where we talk about plant-based lifestyle and everything related. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Frank Sabatino, who is the Director of Balance for Life Health Retreat in Florida. Welcome, Dr. Sabatino. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be with you.
So tell us more about yourself and your retreat and your mission.
Well, I have been a plant-based physician for close to 40 years. In terms of my own background, I'm trained as a chiropractic physician, but then I went on to do a Ph.D. program in medical school too. So I have a Ph.D. in cell biology and neuroendocrinology from the Emory University School of Medicine. And then after that, I wound up doing research on calorie restriction and aging at the University of Texas, which back in the late 80s, early 90s, had one of the largest aging research centers in the world. And from that, through that time, right after that time, I became the health director of something called the Regency Health Spa in Hallandale, Florida, where I stayed for 25 years. And that was a plant-based health center that did water-only fasting, plant-based nutrition, exercise, stress management. It was an inpatient residential facility. After leaving there, I wound up creating this new Balance for Life program at the Wyndham Hotel in Deerfield Beach, Florida, right on the ocean. So my commitment in my own life for close to 40 years has been as a vegan plant-based person, but I've had the beautiful advantage of being able to counsel people as a physician in plant-based lifestyle medicine. And I raised a family of 5 children the same way. So this new place we have, people come for a certain period of time. We have a vegan plant-based food program that is also non-SOS, so there's no added salt, oil, or sugar. We've upscaled the diet to a great extent. We have fitness programs throughout the day, and we focus a lot on stress management too. I teach tai chi and chi-gung. We have yoga. We have all of those things going on around the clock, but we also are one of just a few places that does medically supervised water-only fasting also. And because we're right on the ocean, I've found it to be one of the easiest places for people to fast because the environment is so conducive to support people in that resting state. And of course, Florida is warm. And when you fast, your body tends to get a little colder. So this is a beautiful environment for people to do that. So we have a food program, we have a fasting program, we have people that do other detoxification programs like juicing. But basically our philosophy is that we are centered in compassionate vegan plant-based living. And that's something that's been the most important thing to me and my family over many, many years.
So you just mentioned that you raised 5 children on plant-based lifestyle?
I certainly did, yes.
How old are they?
I married somebody with 3 children, so they were just small children, and then we made 2 boys together. And she had the same commitment to vegetarian and vegan plant-based living. Way back in the early days, they had a little bit of dairy that might have creeped in here or there, but the bottom line is it was totally vegetarian and then totally vegan. And understand something, these are 5 children that now range from 25 to almost 40 years of age, those 5 children. Through their whole childhood, they never had one doctor visit.
Wow.
And they went to public schools where they were exposed to all the same bacteria, viruses, all of that. So by doing this lifestyle, it absolutely supported their health through all of their early lives. Once they got on their own, some of them adhere to it more than others. They've got their own families, their own lives. But I find that when they have any discomfort or if they're trying to get their weight under control or whatever, they always come back to the lifestyle that they were brought up under. So it's kind of intriguing.
Wow. And I just lost my thought here. But okay, so do you, in your center, do you accept all the people, or do you have any prerequisites?
We'll accept most people. I have prerequisites for water-only fasting.
Okay, and what are they?
In water-only fasting, before somebody comes, they have to submit a complete medical examination and a blood exam. So I have to see recent blood work. I have to get a really good handle on their medical history. And if they're on medication, I really can't fast them, with the exception of hormone replacement. So if they're taking thyroid hormones or reproductive hormones like estrogen, they can fast, but I do not fast anybody on medication. So I need to know the medication history, the health history, and I want to make sure that that's in their best interest. As far as the general program, I accept most people for that, because the general program of eating and moderate activity and all of that will pretty much help everybody. And so that I'm not as concerned about. But when it comes to water fasting, that's a very more rigorous kind of, questioning process.
Mm-hmm. So what happens if the person is not plant-based and want to come to for a water fasting, for a water-only fasting to your place?
The question will be, what are their recent health issues? Is it something that I think fasting will benefit? Is it something I think being at my place will benefit? Is their mindset such that I think they're going to follow through on what we need to do when they're here? And many times that kind of a process, both the food program or the fasting program, actually gives people like that a jumpstart into trying a new way of life. So even though they weren't living that way, sometimes that's a good jumpstart. But the truth is, if they're not going to go on with this way of living, and this is only going to be a temporary fix, I'll let them know that they're not going to get the kinds of results that they're really capable of. Because you've got to really make an ongoing commitment to doing this in your life. And again, if they're eating in a very, compromised way, or they're drinking a lot of coffee or alcohol, whatever, I also have to make them aware that when they come here, they may go through some detoxification. And some of that may be actually very uncomfortable. They may have symptoms, they may have ups and downs. So, I try to inform them. We have a very good information process, because my reservation people will immediately give me their phone number. I will call them. We'll have a dialogue. We'll go back and forth. And my only interest is I want to make sure that our program is going to be in their best interest, and they're going to get the maximum benefit by coming to be with us.
Do you ask your potential clients, the people who want to sign up for the water-only fasting, do you ask them to be plant-based for a while?
Yes. Well, I will recommend it. I can't guarantee it, though. But I will definitely recommend that they get rid of the stimulants and additives that may provoke heavy-duty withdrawal. So I'll tell them, try to stop drinking coffee for a few days. Try to stay away from nicotine, alcohol. Try to cut down on the animal products and the processed food. I'll say if you can do that, it's going to make your life a lot happier and healthier when you come to do the fast. Otherwise, some of it can be really rather uncomfortable.
And how long do usually people fast in your retreat?
There's no usual. I mean, it depends on what the person is trying to accomplish. We have had water fasts. The Balance for Life has been open just about a year. So it's just this personal year that it's open, because I was doing other things. In this year, the longest fast we've had a couple of 21-day water fasts, 3 weeks. We've had numbers of them 1 to 2 weeks. There are people that have also come just for 5 days. The real key to fasting is, number one, you have to be monitored, and I do rounds twice a day, and we make sure that the fast is going well. And if I feel we need to break it, we'll break it. But the person also has to commit at least half the amount of time that they're fasting to be refed for the refeeding phase. So if you fast 7 days, you've got to stay 10 to 11. If you fast 10 days, you've got to stay 2 weeks. We need that time to break the fast properly, because the breaking of the fast is really where some of the art is. You have to do that very gradually, very slowly, and allow that person to ease back into eating. And then I will tell them, your best interest is you've got to stay off of all animal and processed food products for a certain period of time after the fast, or you're going to undo the benefit that you did.
Okay. So oops. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we don't have any side noise. Do you suggest that people go for like a week before they come to your facility, they are plant-based. Then let's say they are 14 days doing the water only fast plus the refeeding, and
Right.
that would be sufficient, right?
You mean if they stayed on the program for a week before? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out what would be the ideal time for preparation.
Yeah, if I know they've made a reservation to come to fast, depending on the time they have before they come to me, I will recommend that they stay on this way of living as long as they possibly can. So even try it 1 or 2 or even 3 weeks if you can, but certainly at least a week to 2 away from some of these chemicals, caffeine, sugar, all of that. But sometimes people will come in and we don't have that luxury. So they'll maybe made a little change for a few days and then they'll come into the fast. I will still fast them if I think it's going to be in their best interest. And it also, like I said, it's a way that can help them really change their habits.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a good way to change addictive and compulsive habits, fasting, because you get into a very introspective mode. It's very internal. It's very restful. It's very mindful. So it's something where people don't realize that there is as much psychological detoxification on a fast as there is physiological. So things come up on an emotional level and we talk it through and, we go through all of that. And it's very powerful for that reason, because think about our culture. It's very difficult for people to slow down. Everything's always pulling them outside themselves. So fasting is very, very introspective. So it's a very, it's an incredible process, especially in this day and age, where the idea of spending that kind of time with yourself is very foreign. It's almost like, we've got to have this media outreach. We've got to have everything going on out this way. Not a lot of it goes this way. And so fasting is all about that. How do we turn inward and be very mindful of what's going on within our own bodies and get right with that and get connected to that? It's a beautiful process when you do it right.
Do you think your program helps to deal with food addictions? Can we talk a little bit more about food addictions?
It absolutely does. Understand that people use the word addiction too loosely, and I've studied addiction for a lot of years. In the field of addiction, the word addiction itself, the definition has actually been altered and simplified. So in the field of addiction, the word addiction means the compulsive or continued use of a substance or a behavior, and here's the important part, without concern for negative consequences. So, for example, you're drinking alcohol and you know that you go driving, you're going to maybe kill yourself and everyone in the community, and you still do it. Or you're an overweight person, you know you have diabetes, and if you eat this food, you can have a heart attack or a stroke, and you continue to do it. That would be addiction. The other side of that is if there's not a major negative consequence, it could be abuse, but it's not necessarily addiction. So addiction is one of the ways that people self-medicate their own inability to feel pleasure from the simple acts and joys of life, what's called a reward deficiency syndrome. And we medicate with the 5 major forms of addiction because they're associated with pleasure. So there's food, there's drugs and alcohol, there's sex, there's risk-taking, that rush, and then there's process addictions that include work, shopping, internet, all of that. But the thing they all have in common is that the person is literally self-medicating their own reward system. So many times what's very important about food addiction is that it's different than other addictions, because food addiction, you don't really have to shoot heroin or you really don't have to gamble, but you've got to eat several times a day. So you have to confront that process meal in and meal out. So what I tell people is it's about understanding not only what you're eating, but the context of why and when you're eating it. And so fasting is very good at making you mindful and helping you become more aware of your own context. Because many times we're using food after a trigger in the environment. It's a way we create comfort. It's a way we create pleasure. It's a way we create satisfaction when we're not able to handle some of these traumas and events that we encounter. So in fasting, you don't have food. So we take that away. So now you've got to develop resources that are not food-based. And that's where you now can go inside and you start to unravel some of that. And so fasting can be quite powerful for dealing with food addiction.
What are the most common mistakes in refeeding window?
Refeeding after a fast?
Yes.
I think people eating too much food too soon. I mean, or too much concentrated or cooked food too soon. When we break a fast, I break it with diluted juices, and then we go into simple juices, and then melons and simple fruit, and then some vegetables and steamed vegetable. So there's a whole pattern to do it. Sometimes people, and that's why I prefer or I recommend that people fast in a fasting center under the supervision of somebody that knows what they're doing. Because sometimes at home you have so many distractions, and when you break the fast, you could break it with food that's too complicated too soon, and that can be very problematic. And so eating too much too soon, sometimes exercising too much too soon. I urge people to ease into activity after a fast, because sometimes when you break a fast, you can actually feel like you hit the wall. People think that as soon as they start eating, they're going to have all of this energy come back. The fasting has a momentum. There's a momentum in the body. So you may still feel low energy. You may still feel, the body may still need to ease into gathering itself after a fast. So I would say doing too much movement too soon, eating too much food too soon. So we do all of that very gradually and very slowly, and that's important.
But then people go back home to the
Right.
environment full with all this food. How
Right.
hard I find it hard to keep do we have to keep a portion control after the program?
Yeah, the piece that you're missing, though, is that when they go through a fast and now they've gone through a refeeding, there's a certain amount of change in perspective that occurs where there's a little bit more of a stronger resolve at being able to stay on track a little bit easier and a little bit longer. It doesn't mean those triggers are not there, because they're still there. And we have to battle with those for most of our lives, no matter how long you've been on the program, But the bottom line is, with fasting, your taste will change. So you will taste things that you couldn't taste before. So natural foods will have this unbelievable taste, and a lot of the compromised processed foods will not. You'll reject them. They're very much, too much salt, and you get that feeling. So there is actually a change in the body and in the mind that makes staying on track a lot easier after a fast. And even after people stay and just do our regular program. When if you've been at the place for a week or so, or a week or two, and you've been eating this way and living this way, people have, and they often remark that they're able to stay on track for a lot longer period of time than they might have thought, because they've had that introduction, they've had that jump start. And so, look, it's a dance for all of us. We get on track, we fall off track. The big thing for people to realize is that everyone falls off track. The really successful people get back on track in a short period of time. So don't beat yourself up, don't get lost in it. Look at it, really examine your life, examine what it's related to. What is this food you're eating related to? Are there stressful situations? Are there conditions that you can address in a different way other than just by going into junk food or comfort food? And so this process is very important, and living this lifestyle and even adding a fast to it gives you a jump start in that process of consciousness that has to go on with a kind of mindful awareness to what do these foods do in my body and in my life? And can I find other ways to cope so that I'm not just constantly going back to the same old junk food pattern or poor lifestyle pattern? So this will give you that jump start.
Great. So your program, you have 3 programs. You have a plant-based program where people just come and stay there and eat plant-based, sauce-free food. The other program is juicing, and the third one is water-only fasting, correct?
Yeah, I guess you can see them as distinct programs, yes. And so that's true. I would say primarily it would be the whole food program, and then water fasting program. And then occasionally people fill in the middle of that because, see, on juicing, you can still be somewhat active. When you go on water fasting, you have to adhere, you have to respect inactivity because you're in a resting mode. So sometimes people don't want to come and not be able to attend an exercise class. They want to be part of that. So when they're juicing, they can be more part of that. When they're fasting, they can't. So yes, that would be probably the 3 different kinds of programs we have for sure.
And when the people in one of those programs, do you have any lectures? How is the?
Oh yeah, I lecture every day, Monday through Friday, on every aspect of health. Then we have other people that sometimes come in the evening and give a presentation. But our program is based on education. I'm very big in my work of not only letting people know what this is about and teaching it in a very entertaining and relatable way, but also helping them understand that I want them to be successful when they go home. So I will give them the tools and an understanding that they can translate. And we also have a little bit of a health at home program where people, when they leave, can purchase some consultation time with me. So it's an ongoing connection. Some people love that. Some don't feel they need to do it, but we have that opportunity, and we're going to expand that more and more, because your point is well made. When you go home, you want to have that little bit of support. Yeah. And the bottom line is, I tell people, find a local group where you live, find people of like mind. There's so many cities and towns now that have these plant-based groups that are really sharing information and coming together. And so it's beautiful now. They have that opportunity. And so I tell them that's a very big piece, because you're going to need some ongoing support. But we highlight the education, and I highlight how do you be successful when you leave a place of mine, like mine.
So I have this question here. Do the people on, when they on water only fasting in your facility, can they do any activities that you have there? Like,
well, water only fasting, they're in the hotel where we're working, so they can come down and go to a lecture. They can come down. The ocean is literally 20 feet away from my place. They can sit by the beach. They can sit by the pool. So they can get as much air as they want outside. I have no problem with that. They just can't be physically active. Because if you think about it, fasting is an energy conservation process. You're taking all the energy that you would normally use in the digestion of food and the procurement of food and getting food and all of that, and you're allowing that to be used by the body for whatever the healing is that the body deems necessary. So we try to minimize the activity, because energy can't be everywhere at the same time. If you drive it into the muscles for activity, you have less for the internal work of healing and detoxification. So you'll get a lot more done on the fast by surrendering to the process of rest. But we do allow people to go to lecture, to sit by the pool, sit by the ocean, and get fresh air, for sure. Okay,
good. And tell me more about the facility itself. So this is like a hotel on the front line?
Yeah, the facility is interesting because it's a Wyndham hotel. It has 172 rooms, but we have all of our private spaces within it, which is what makes it work. Because until this time in my life, I had never done a program like this in a mixed hotel. I only had my own grounds where we only did it, and everybody there was doing the same thing. But this place has several restaurants that don't serve certain meals. So one of the restaurants doesn't serve lunch, so I have it privately for my people for lunch. There's another place that doesn't serve breakfast. We have it privately overlooking the ocean for breakfast. So my group is always private, and I keep it small. When I was at the Regency, we had 60 rooms. I was dealing with 50 to 100 people a week. Now I'm dealing with 5 to 15 people a week. I wanted it to be very intimate and very personal. So I sit and I have meals with everyone. So we're always talking about health and issues. So it never stops. They always have this constant education and constant connection. It's a very intimate, up close kind of situation. And that's what we're even doing with that big event that we have coming up in January, which you know about, because we've decided that our location is so wonderful that we want to be able to use it in the future for people who are plant-based educators, physicians, influencers, to know that we are going to be a landmark, a destination for plant-based education. So they can bring their own groups to this hotel knowing that we have this program in place, and they know they can get the food and they can do all the education and have an oceanfront vacation while they do a plant-based education. So January 5th to the 9th is the first one of these. All of the speakers have been handpicked by me. They're incredible people. Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Victoria Moran, who runs Main Street Vegan in New York, Dr. Stefan Esser, whose grandfather was one of the icons of the fasting movement, myself, and then we're going to limit it to like around 100 people because we wanted to still stay very intimate. And they're going to have the full Balance for Life program, all the meals included, all plant-based. We have incredible chefs, vegan chefs coming to do food demos. I'll be doing 5 lectures in the morning, 1 at night, and we have lectures every single night. We have a wonderful movie that was produced by Victoria from Main Street Vegan called A Prayer for Compassion. And it's the whole spiritual foundation of this plant-based lifestyle and how to incorporate that into solving some of these catastrophes of personal and planetary health. So we have an incredible program coming, and we've kept all the discounts. We've made it incredibly affordable for people. So they just have to go on balanceforlifeflorida.com or call the number 800-663-9292. And they can make that reservation. But that's coming. It's January 5th, so there's not a lot of time left. And we still have some spaces. And I urge people that if they want a life-changing transformation, this is going to be a way to get a jump start for the new year. It's a 5-day, 4-night program, intensive. You'll be surrounded by a fellowship of like-minded people and the most incredible speakers that you'll have access to, that you can talk to and interact with. So I'm hoping your listeners and anybody that is friends of your listeners will open their mind to that possibility, because it's going to be a phenomenal experience.
And it's a wonderful way to start a new year, right?
Yeah.
It's
now we all make resolutions, right, for health.
Yes.
So this is the way to get it going. This is the jump start. Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to this retreat. And you have such a great speakers lined up there.
They're amazing people.
Amazing. And you have Dr. Goldhammer, who has so I live in San Francisco, and I go to his retreat almost every week. So how is yours? And it's so great to have your place on the East Coast, because a lot of people are asking, we don't have this facility on the East Coast, and now we have you.
They have it now, yes. And the Regency was that way too for 25 years. We were in Florida. So yes, because there's a number of people that are on the East Coast all the way to the Midwest. They don't necessarily want to fly to Northern California. They like coming to the warmth of Florida. It's an easy connection. The flights are easy. So it's very accessible, But the program that we do, we fast the same way. We have the same standard of care. Mm-hmm. Dr. Goldhammer's standard of care is the same one, because we're part of an organization of doctors that were trained in fasting care, and we created a standard of practice. So we pretty much all follow that. So the benefit of our place, and like I said at the very beginning, is by having a location directly on the ocean with the warmth of Florida. I have never found a place as easy as this place to fast people. People go through fast so much easier, and I believe it has to do with the ocean air and the environment. It's just something about it that makes it very conducive to fast. So it's a lot easier. But their place is phenomenal. Dr. Goldhammer has done tremendous research. He's got an incredible staff. We know each other 30 to 40 years. We're old friends, and we refer people to each other. If I have somebody that I think would benefit, or they're further west, I'll send them to Dr. Goldhammer. If he gets a call from someone on the East Coast, I'll let them know, look, there's a place on the East Coast. You don't have to come all the way here. And after the movie What the Health, his place became so popular that he's got a waiting list for months. And so there are people that need to fast sooner, so they try to come into our place too. So we have a great relationship, and he's a phenomenal doctor. His place is just magnificent. And I'm excited that he is coming to speak at our event, which is lovely.
Yes.
I invited him personally because he's such a good friend. So.
Yes. And he gives such a great lectures.
Oh, he's a great speaker. All the speakers coming to this event not only are knowledgeable, not only they're just entertaining as well as informative. They're just amazing, amazing speakers. I wanted every speaker to just knock it out of the park. And that's the people we have coming. So the people that attend, the guests, are going to be blown away by these speakers. Every one of them are fantastic. Everyone.
Do you participate in any research? Any medical research?
My background is in very hardcore research. So right now we're dealing with a small population, but the goal for the future is for me to share with Dr. Goldhammer all of the information so we can create a database that will now be able to be used for publication and for research in the practice of fasting. So that is on the agenda for all of us.
That would be great.
Yeah, it's needed. It's so needed.
Mm-hmm. So another question comes up all the time. A lot of people want to go to the retreats like yours or True North, but they find it expensive. And do you take any insurance?
I don't. We're not in the position to take insurance. So I'm not sure if True North can, where Dr. Goldhammer is. They may be able to through some part of the program because they have physical exams, they have medical doctors. They probably can declare some of that. But as far as the care itself, it's not reimbursable at this particular point. But the truth of the matter is, when you calculate the costs and what the quality of it is, I think both of us have tried to create a price point that is reachable by people that are regular working people. You know, they're not outrageous prices, but you know, we're going to be more expensive on some level than going to True North, because if you come to Florida in high season on the ocean, the rooms in the hotel that we have to, you know, pay for, those prices go up. So that has to be filtered into our cost. But for what we have, the fact that you're including all meals, all lectures, all education, all monitoring, and the room, the prices are unbelievably affordable. And that's a big piece to me, because as you said, I want to make this work. I want to make this information available to as many people as I can. I don't want it to just be for the lifestyles of the rich and famous. That's not my thing. I come from a very middle-class family. I grew up in the Bronx in New York City, and I'm very much aware of wanting to be able to reach everybody, as many people as I possibly can. That's my thing. So we try to do it.
I think your prices are very reasonable.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do.
How much we spend on the meds, on doctors. I mean, this is something you can do for your body, for yourself going forward. This is really an investment into the longer life.
No question. And especially when you consider we're providing all this organic plant-based food, and we have this constant interaction with the doctor and information and sharing. I mean, you can't really buy that anywhere. It's very difficult to find that. So we've created that environment of intimate, high quality, natural plant-based living. And it's a really remarkable way to, indoctrinate yourself into that lifestyle. And it changes people's lives. It transforms people's lives. There's no question about it.
Awesome. I want to come to your retreat.
Well, I hope you do. Do you ever get to Florida?
Yes, my parents live in Boca, so I fly there all the time.
I'm a mile away from Boca.
Yeah. So next time I'm there.
You're right on that border of Deerfield and Boca. So when you come, you have to come and visit for sure.
I will definitely come for sure. Yeah. And I'm still thinking about the conference. I would love to attend that. This is 4 days, you said.
Well, it's 5 days and 4 nights.
Right.
So it's going to start Saturday evening, but people will come in that lunchtime or earlier that day, and there'll still be some programs. And it'll end by Wednesday, after lunch on Wednesday. So it's 5 days with 4 nights. And we're going to have probably some people, because our program will continue on. We'll probably have some people that come before and stay after that'll just stay as part of the regular program. But that intensive is going to be 5 days and 4 nights. And I urge everybody to look into it and really come if you can. really, truthfully.
Please repeat the where we can find all this information.
Well, as I said, our website is balanceforlifeflorida.com.
Mm-hmm.
The phone number that can be used is 800-663-9292. And those two areas are, you can find all the information. And our program is also being sponsored by a very important group in America called the NHA, the National Health Association. And Mark Huberman and his people run that. And we're very closely connected with them because they have been, for 70 years, they've been at the forefront of this kind of education. And me and Alan Goldhammer and all these doctors, Joel Furman, that do this kind of work, we have been connected with that organization for many, many years. And we so wholly support them because they have no agenda. They're not selling any product. All they're selling is education for people to have health freedom. And so that's such a big piece for me. And they have a magazine called Health Science, where when you join them for like $35 a year, Health Science magazine is a remarkable magazine, and we all write for it. I write for them on a regular basis. So all of these groups are really there to help people find that autonomy, that health freedom, to be able to really live with abundant life and health. And that's what this is about. And we're all about that.
You're doing such a great job informing people and helping people and let people find this path to the optimal health.
I appreciate that.
And just want to go through some questions. We have a few minutes left.
Please.
The person on a plant-based diet eats, like she went through, she was in a True North fasting, went through the water-only fasting program, and then did her refeeding time. And then what happens is she ate something like some animal product. Okay. And she had such a bad reaction, like nausea and headache. And she's wondering what exactly happens on a gut level. Like what's happening to the
body's rejecting what doesn't belong in her body. It's very straightforward. When you have an acute reaction, think about this. The first time somebody smokes, what happens to them? They get nauseous, queasy, they get dizzy, then they keep smoking and that passes. If they stop and go back, the same thing happens. It's a poison. You're poisoning the body. The system is reacting. So there's so much chemical irritation. There's so much stuff where the system now is no longer comfortable digesting and handling those kind of foods. You know, I used to drink a lot of alcohol way back. And when I got away from it, if I go back, I feel it in my neck, I feel it here. So what that's giving me is signals to tell me, you know what, don't do it. Just don't do it. I mean, you're getting the system is very wise. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So the body should react to things that are posing a threat or irritating it. And when you put something in that's posing a threat or irritating it and the body reacts, you should just applaud it. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Because without that information, how would you know? So her body has gotten much more sensitive after the fast and after what she was doing. So when she put something back in that didn't have a healthy relationship with her body let her know about it. And it tried to reject it in any way that it can. So it could be nausea, it could be bowel diarrhea, it could be, any number of ways that it can get it out. It'll get it out. We need to just be okay with that information and embrace it and say, okay, it's giving me the signal that this is not in my best interest. So I don't need to go back to this. How else are you going to change? That's a beautiful thing.
And then another thing happens to people who are trying to get on the plant-based lifestyle, and they start eating more legumes, and they have a bad reaction. So what does...
It's not a bad reaction. It's a reaction to the fact that their bowel has not been really having to digest that level of fiber, the lectins that are in beans. It's not that they're a problem. It's just that if you think about people eating a very standard diet, the diet has no fiber content. It's very low in fiber. It's low in water. So the bowel, in a way, becomes very sluggish. It's not really ready to handle what it's supposed to be eating, which is much more roughage and fiber. So there's going to be an adjustment period. When you leave a standard diet and eat a diet like this, there'll be more gas, there'll be more bloating. So you eat things very slowly. You watch the combinations. You chew more thoroughly. You eat smaller portions. Let the body accommodate and adapt. So maybe you have more vegetables and greens with a smaller portion of legumes. And let the system come into a little bit of a balance with that. But many times it's just happening that the system for the first time is encountering the food that it actually should be eating. And when you do, the diet, the bowel, and everything will respond beautifully. But you got to give it a little time. There's a little time.
You just mentioned the food, to watch the food combination. Can we talk a little bit more about this? Is there some combination we have to avoid?
I'm using that very loosely. There was a time in this movement where there was a lot of adherence to rules of food combining. Many years ago, one of the great thinkers and doctors of the movement, Dr. Herbert Shelton, wrote a book called Food Combining Made Easy. Unfortunately, there was nothing easy about it. He created all these rules and all these combinations. As we've learned more, we've come to find out that many of those combinations are not accurate, and we don't need to get lost in them. So when I say paying attention to food combination, I don't mean adhering to rules. I just mean watching the quantity of what you're putting together. So initially, you'll be better off having more fruit and greens, let's say, and a little less of the higher lectin foods like beans, but you got to still use them and let the body ease in. To me, greens are the great equalizer. No matter what concentrated food you eat, have them with greens. Salad, steamed greens, any way you can get greens, as much as you can. So if you eat rice and beans, you have greens with it. You eat pasta, you have greens with it. Just keep coming back and allowing the system to kind of accommodate to the diet. Understand, if you've been eating a standard diet, let's say for 20 years, and now I put you right into a plant-based diet, it's going to be a bit of an eruption. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of bloating, there's going to be some gas, you may feel a little bit, out of sorts. It's just an adjustment period. You got to give it a little time, that's all. But once you do, your digestion will be better, your bowel function will be better, your energy will be off the charts, everything will be tremendously improved.
I hear you. So if, do we have to control the portion of fruits? If the person wants to lose weight, fruits and starches, do we eat starches? How do we have to watch the portion?
No, because no. That's why none of us serve food. No, none of us do food service. We put out everything buffet style. You take as much as you want. One of the beautiful things of this program is it's not about eating less, it's about eating well. And the fact is, when you eat starches and fruits and vegetables, they're so low in calorie density. It's like 100 to 300 calories a pound for vegetables and fruits. So they're low in calorie density. So you can eat, and they're high in fiber and water. So they give you a filling up effect at very low calorie densities. I don't care how much you eat. And if you're eating with non-SOS, it's also going to not have any stimulant, addictive stimulation with sugar and salt and all of that. So I just eat till you're full, eat slowly, eat mindfully, but there's really no limitation. We're talking about eating till you're full and not work. That's one of the beautiful things about eating this way. You don't need to worry about all of that volume and calorie counting. The only place you got to be mindful of counting calories are in the higher fat, dense plant-based foods like nuts, avocados, things of that nature. You want to control their quantity because they're much more calorie dense. Plants are 100 calories to 300 calories a pound. Nuts are over 2,000 calories a pound. So if you start getting carried away with nuts, your calories are going up quickly. So the bottom line is, for the most part, we don't worry about calorie density unless you're really looking at things like avocados, nuts, and then you want to watch the quantity. You still want to eat those foods because they're high quality, beautiful foods, but you want to watch a little bit of the quantity there. Otherwise, no, just enjoy it. Remember, eat. For an Italian person like me that was brought up eating, I love to eat. So I love this lifestyle because I can eat huge volumes of food and not worry about it. Because, again, I'm not eating the junk and the high fat and the high sugar and all the other garbage that comes into typical standard diets.
Can we talk a little bit about SOS? Like salt. Some people think that we need salt. It's an essential mineral that a little quantity of salt is good for us.
Well, it is an essential mineral. You know, the human body is electromagnetic in nature. We're always giving off current. That's why you can measure an EKG by putting electrodes on the chest. You can measure the electrical discharge of the heart. You can measure the electrical discharge of the brain. So every cell of the body is like a battery in miniature. It's generating electrical charge. And that charge is basically being created by the movement of two minerals, sodium and potassium. But as it turns out, animal bodies hold on to sodium like a miser. It's very rigorous. What they turn over more is potassium. That's why if anybody's ever been put on a diuretic medication for high blood pressure, they're usually given a potassium supplement because they know they're going to be losing potassium more than sodium. So since mammals, animal bodies hold on to sodium more, it would suggest that if you want a diet that's in your best interest, that diet should be very high in potassium and very low in sodium. And that's exactly what a plant-based diet is. All plants and vegetables will have many of them have some sodium content, but it's very well controlled. So we contend that the sodium that you need, you will get totally from the food you're eating. None have to be added to the food. And when you start adding sodium, you're creating an imbalance. The body needs potassium more. So for example, we may need, let's say for the sake of argument, about 500 milligrams or so of sodium a day. Let's say 500 to 1,000 for the sake of argument. The average person in the United States is eating more than 3,000 to 4,000 a day. And the government is telling you need 2,000. And the reason they're telling you need 2,000 is because if they tell you need less, they'd have to change the whole junk food industry because it's loaded with sodium. Most people get sodium abuse from the refined processed foods that they're eating. So we need sodium. We need it within the window of need, but we know that sodium causes tremendous fluid retention, which will raise blood pressure, which will increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. It will increase inflammation. It will provoke the risk of stomach cancer. It will promote osteoporotic change, and on and on. And the fact of the matter is we have an incredibly salted and sodium abused culture. So we need it. We need it within a smaller window of need. And the fruits and vegetables are providing all that we need without any of it having to be added to food. Bottom line.
And what about oil? I had a client telling me that when she ate, she has a high blood sugar, and right. she was eating surface-free plant-based lifestyle, and she says every time she eats a potato or sweet potato, her sugar goes up. But so she stopped and she went and she added oil to her food. She started eating olive oil and flaxseed oil, and she said her blood sugar went down. Why would that happen?
Well, first of all, if you think about it, and we talk about this all the time, there is no animal in nature, none, that isolates the pure fat from their food chain, puts it in big bottles of liquid fat called oil, and then pours it on everything. No animal in nature does that. We need fat and we need oil. It comes in. We want it to come in the whole foods that you're eating. So if you're eating avocado or you're eating plants, I mean, you can have a diet with just greens and it will be about 5% plus fat. You only need 10%, 10 to 15% fat in the diet, not the 30 to 35% that the government is telling you. And the problem is fat is also calorie dense. Fat provides 9 calories of energy per gram that you eat versus 4 for protein and starch. So when you're eating a lot of fats and oils, you're eating 2.25 times more calories by weight, and that calorie density will contribute to this fatness. But we also know that when the diet is higher in fat, especially animal fat and concentrated fats, that it also will interfere with the receptors in the body that accept insulin and regulate sugar. So diabetes is not really more from high sugar. When you have higher sugar, the body will either burn it up or store it as glycogen in muscle and liver cells. The real problem with diabetes is fat that alters the receptors for insulin and creates what we call insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, insulin doesn't attach very well. The body can't regulate sugar to allow it to enter cells as effectively. The sugar levels will rise, and the only way the body can protect you is by converting that sugar into fat, and it stores it as fat, and you have all this fat storage. So in many ways, obesity and even diabetes are the byproduct of insulin resistance that follow on the heels of high fat diets, not high sugar diets. That's a very important piece, though, because it's been lost in the discussion of things. So the fact of the matter is, whatever she's seeing in an elevation of sweet potato, the more she stays on a plant-based approach, with all of the high fiber and all of the starches that come in, I don't care if it's sweet potato, brown rice, greens, legumes, lentils, beans, I will guarantee you over time, her insulin attachment will improve, her blood sugar levels will drop precipitously, because we see this as the way that we help diabetics recover and reverse diabetes. We do it with the plant-based approach, and the diet's all carbs. I mean, it's mostly carbohydrate. I mean, that's what we're meant to eat, but not refined carbs. Carbs that come in with fiber and water and come in with protein and fats and the whole, complex of macronutrients. This is very important. So I would urge her to get away from the oil. For example, for the longest time, vegans and vegetarians made coconut oil their religion. And we now know that coconut oil is one of the most profound ways to raise serum cholesterol levels in the shortest period of time possible. It's way too saturated. So if you want coconut oil, eat coconuts, not the oil. You want avocado oil, eat avocados. You want nuts, nut oil, eat. You want olive oil, eat the olives, not the olive oil. So we now know that when you process oils too, you raise what's called the advanced glycation end products, these AGEs. They go up as oil is heated and processed. And these things are linked with premature inflammation and aging. And we're going to talk about those on our Superpower Summit when you and I have our interview, because that's going to be one of the models of aging that we're going to share, and how plant-based eating resolves that and changes that. We're going to get into all of that. And I think your listeners are going to love that discussion.
I can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to have a fun discussion.
Last question.
Yes.
About water. Do we need to drink a lot of water on this lifestyle, on plant-based eating?
Well, if you think about it, the foods that we're eating in a plant-based lifestyle are mostly water. Their water content is extremely high. So I find that when you're eating this way, with all the abundance of fruits and greens and veggies, that your need for outside water consumption becomes significantly less. This idea that everyone needs to drink 8 glasses of water was always very anecdotal. There's no real solid science that backs that up. But the truth is, if you think about it, if you're eating a very standard American diet that's loaded with meat and dairy and processed foods, that diet has very little water content, has very little fiber content. So that person will probably need to consume a lot more liquid than the person who's eating a diet that's loaded with water and fruits and vegetables. So I would say just be attentive to your thirst needs, get as much of the water as you can from your fruits and veggies, and then have some small additional water on the side, as clean as you can get it. And that can be just simply distilled or, whatever clean water you can find. But the bottom line is we're going to get most of our liquid from the food itself in this kind of a diet.
And the water used in your retreat, when you water on the water fast, is the distilled water, correct?
We use water that is about as neutral pH distilled as we can get it. Mm-hmm. And so we have some units that put that in. There's always, even when you have distilled water from a distiller, when you have it exposed to air, there'll be some exposure to carbon dioxide. It creates a little bit of carbonic acid. So the pH, even of distilled water, can drop a little bit below 7, below neutral. But as a rule, we're trying to get water that's just frankly neutral. This idea of getting into all these hyper-alkaline waters with these expensive water machines, I don't really think you need to get lost in that as much, because the water that's in fruits and vegetables is primarily just a distilled kind of water. It's a neutral kind of water. That's the water we actually need.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Frank, it's been a very informative interview. I'm really glad that we could get in touch and have this connection happen.
Yes.
And I appreciate for everything you shared with us, your phone number is 1-800-663-9292. That's where people can reach out and
make a resolution for Balance for Life, and also find, if they want to call that number, find out information about this wonderful health conference that's coming up. Or they can go right on our website online at balanceforlifeflorida.com.
And I see that the price that you have for this conference is also very, very reasonable.
Oh, let me think about this. We're going to be in high season in January, right on the ocean, 5 days, 4 nights. If you come with someone, it's a little over $1,600 for the whole thing. That's everything included. That's an unbelievable price. We've tried to keep it so affordable so we can turn as many people on as possible. That's my thing. That's what we want to do.
It is. And the speakers, the line of speakers is just awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. We all thank you. And
thank you for your invitation. And I'd like to thank all the listeners who stayed with us through this whole time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.